listen, there's a lot of shit out there. We all don't have the time, but I feel like with that trucker convoy, I used the method that a lot of people use these days, where it's just like, oh, my dumbest friend on Facebook is for this. I probably disagree with this. And then just kind of like scrolled.
Welcome back, everyone, to episode number 27 of the Johnny Rogers Show. My guest today is a comedian from New York City, originally from Buffalo, New York. He has performed in many clubs, including the prestigious Comedy Cellar. He has a podcast called In the Hunt, a Buffalo Bills podcast, and he has a brand new comedy special out on YouTube, and he'll be performing at Bananas in New Jersey, February 18th and 19th, Good Nights in Raleigh, February 25th and 26th, plus more dates in Rochester, Tampa Bay, and Indianapolis. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend and yours, Shaun Murphy.
What a job! I wouldn't have done that good of a job. I'm already very impressed.
Hey, perfect. Your word for the podcast was trivia. So what made you want to jump on that word for kicking the podcast off?
I think I was just thinking about it lately because during the pandemic, weirdly got very into trivia. Me and a group of friends, like 20 plus friends, every Sunday night, we go on Zoom and we do trivia and we take turns who writes the questions. Oh. And it's like, we've gotten like too into it. There's standings. There's
a fantasy league trivia.
Yeah, it's gotten very intense now. And it's like, I think I maybe got like 3% smarter from it. It's fun.
Hey, do you have what's like, I don't know, I would say like a piece of, or like a trivia fact that most people would know, but it just like stuck with you?
Well, there's like things, I don't know if you're a Jeopardy fan, but that woman who went on that long run, the question that got her was something like, this is the only country that ends in an H. And I had written that question like a month ago. So I was like, oh, this Bangladesh, I'm all over this. So yeah, kind of and it's gotten too out of hand. Like we make our own like movie and music rounds. Like we've gotten pretty into it.
That's awesome. Well, it's always good too to find like somewhat of a distraction that you could not just like there was plenty of ways for people to distract themselves during the pandemic, right? Like some people turn to drugs, some people turn to alcohol.
What if that was my second? I'm like big into trivia, big into drugs. Those are my two.
Have you tried heroin? God damn. Yeah, at least trivia was a more beneficial thing for comedy even too, and for writing. Like, have you found that it's inspired any like bits or anything?
A little bit. Like in general, it's always, even with comedy, it's good knowing more than knowing less. Like even if you're talking about any topic, like and someone, that's why I'm like always a little, not like annoyed, but you hear all this talk about these, people too sensitive, trying to cancel. It's like, I want all the perspectives. I'm not saying I'll agree with all of them, but if I tell a joke and someone's like, oh, that's offensive, or they're like, I actually think the opposite, I go, well, let's see if I could bake that into the joke. Maybe the joke changes, maybe the joke gets better. That's interesting to me.
Yeah, because it adds layers, right? Like it's almost like we've been playing the comedy game on easy mode, and then someone came in and implemented some new rules. Yeah. And a lot of people just couldn't handle the new rules. They're like, I don't like this. I like easy mode. I like being able to just be the god of my game. And it's like, well, that shit looks weak now. It's like now, totally. If you can articulate a point and navigate those waters, you look like even more like a master of what 100%.
Like I always think about like Attell is someone out there who doesn't put out a lot of content, but like whenever I watch him, I leave going, one, I think he's the funniest living comedian, but also two, like he's not really that offensive in different aspects of it. You know what I'm saying? Like he does a great job of like keeping up with the times in terms of his references. Like I saw him the other day and he made like a Lumineers reference. And I'm like, what like 50-year-old dude? You know what I'm saying? I know they're not as hot as maybe they were like 5 years ago, but still like that's essentially like someone like my dad could be friends with, knowing who the Lumineers, that's
Yeah.
insane to me. Um, and so like there's that sense of it, but then there's also the like, you know, he would ride the line more than anyone, but he's not out there saying shit just to get people riled up. He wants to laugh.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Like the end goal is laughter, and I think that it's like with anything, right? Like if you even were to look at fitness influencers, you would be like, okay, there's people that are doing this that like care about other people's health and they want them to grow and they want them to change, and that's what they're focused on. But then there's some people who are just trying to make a quick buck and they're just like throwing
Right.
the shittiest stuff together and then complaining that like, oh, the world of fitness influencing is so hard because I can't
Right. Yeah.
grow my following. It's like, no, you're in it for the wrong reasons. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't think any of the censorship, aside from like you losing your job because of something you said,
Mm.
but I don't think any of it affects people, or they should let it affect people's like mentality when you're trying to write a joke. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
just the laugh is literally the only goal of the joke, nothing further
Yeah.
than that.
And the more type of people you could get on board with the laugh, the better. Like I remember getting advice like early on that's like, if you do, say you do like a joke that brings up race, say you're a white person, you bring up a joke that brings up like black people. If you do it in a white room and everyone laughs, okay, but like the true merit of the joke is if you then go into a room with all black
Def
people
Jam.
and they think the joke's really funny. Like
Yeah,
then the
yeah,
joke becomes like invincible,
yeah.
so like that's kind of the key, is getting people on board, not seeing people go off board and being like, how dare you, I'm a genius. Like the stuff can always improve.
Yeah, Kramer, we're looking at you.
Yeah, yeah, he tried that joke out in a black room the night before and it did not
It
go
killed.
well.
Yeah. It killed. Sorry, someone almost got killed. That's what I meant to say. The joke did not kill. Yeah, no, that is definitely like the true testament, is trying to tell a joke directed at the people who are literally right in front of you.
Yeah.
And then like deciding, not even like race, like say like I think it was Russell Peters who went somewhere in the Middle East and he had to perform for like a king, and the rule was like, don't talk about him whatsoever. And that was the first thing out of his mouth, because he was like, well, I got it, because that's literally going to be on everyone's mind the entire time.
Yeah.
Because they know I'm not supposed to talk about it. And that's
Right.
like, it's so funny. That's such a common like trait for a lot of comedians, is like doing the thing you're not supposed to do.
And I think a lot of times because, and this isn't 100% thing, but a lot of times in general, we miss, audiences are pretty good normally at picking up on like the type of person you are. Like
Mm-hmm.
one person could say a joke and someone else could say the exact same joke, and say the joke's about you in particular. Say, the comic's on stage and he's pointing to Johnny and he's making fun of you. Like they could hit differently depending on how it's said, the jokes that happened before it, the tone he's saying it in. Like I could say the exact same thing as someone else, and you might go, "I like that person better. He doesn't seem like he wants to fight me. It's the same lines, but there's different context to
Yeah.
it."
That should be all. That should be the future way that they do all comedy competitions. Is they write one act, and every comedian has to perform the same act, and whoever
That
performs the best,
that is very interesting.
that determines who wins.
I remember years ago, like when I first moved to New York City, it was maybe like 8 or so years ago, I did this open mic and there was like no one there. There was like, there's like 7 comics and everyone was like, let's go up, just do a couple jokes and then leave early. And then it became kind of a running thing where the first person did a joke and the second person like jokingly like covered their joke. So the way it ended up was everyone was doing one joke from the person who was just on stage.
That's
So I
so
remember the
funny.
guy after me did one of my jokes, and it was so fascinating to hear like it go into someone else's brain and then out their mouth. Like it was some joke, I don't do anymore, but it was the idea behind it was something simple of like, uh, you know, I think it was like I was at Blockbuster and someone asked me like where Shawshank Redemption was, and I was like, well, did you check S? Or that was the basis of
Yeah,
the very
yeah,
bad joke that I don't do anymore. And
yeah. Sure.
I remember the guy said it, and he like added like like gay slurs into it, and I was like, why is this part of this? Like, this has nothing to do with like, it's just
This doesn't
like
support it.
that was how he thought the joke needed to be punched up a little
Oh
bit. It's
my
like, you know
God.
it's just like, wow, wild.
Yeah, I see why it can like immediately go wrong at that point. If you were just allowing, if it was like your material that you were allowing the next guy to go up and do. I remember a couple open mics where again there was like nobody there, and we would just like repeat the same material. Like it
Yeah.
would be like you do a ten, like say there's like six comedians, you do like 10 minutes each, and then like the first couple come back up and then do the same 10 minutes at the end when there's new people coming in. So
Right.
it just
Yeah.
looked like a constant show. There's just new people coming in and leaving at different times. You're literally just like
That's
cycling on
funny.
that. Oh shit. How are you liking it in New York, like doing spots there? Because I know in Canada we're locked down, so it's like even Yuck
Yeah,
Yucks they were
right.
supposed to be open again, and then they had to close again. So I'm like,
Yeah, I haven't really. It seemed like yeah, the Canadian community there has been in a way hit harder just because uh America, I mean, obviously we've had, I'm sure a better percentage of deaths because we're number one in everything. But the we did kind of open, yeah, exactly. We did open back up quicker. So like I've been doing sets since last April,
oh
you know,
wow,
and which for the most part has been nice. It obviously took a while to get used to, and I feel much better now, both having got the booster and having got COVID because just doing so many shows. I knew I'm like, this is coming, but I just got to be prepared because
did you
I
get
mean,
the
the job is
Omicron?
essentially to be in windowless rooms with people from
Yeah, right.
the world.
Well, people breathe at you.
Yeah. So I'm like, this is coming. So I'm going to be as safe as possible, make sure I'm all, prepared. But it didn't hit me very hard at all. So I was, grateful for that.
Yeah, what was it, the Omicron variant that you
Yeah.
got, or oh,
I
okay,
assume so. I don't think there's any way I've heard to really tell, but it was pretty mild. I didn't even lose taste, none of that stuff. It was just kind of,
interesting.
I just kind of had like a 1 day fever, maybe a 5 day cough, and then just kind of wrote it out.
Yeah, well, I mean, like that's fucking great to hear. Like that we're at that point of the pandemic
Yeah,
now, where it's like the
exactly.
vaccine's doing its thing. It's now treated as a cold. I know they didn't want you to compare it to a cold early
Mhm.
on, but now it's literally they're like, yeah, it's like a cold
Yeah.
now.
Well, now it's like, well, if you take all the precautions
Yeah,
and you're not like immunocompromised, you're not old, probably going to hit you like a cold. That's what it seems like. But I mean, I'm no, expert. We're
somebody
not
needs to grab
we're
Trudeau by
not
the collars and tell him
yeah,
this.
yeah, we're not two Joe Rogans up here. I don't know
Yeah,
what I'm talking about. I'm
yeah.
not going to pretend I do.
Actually, it's fine. I'm gonna bring in a denier right now. He's gonna
Yeah,
debate
we
us.
have a big panel coming up.
Big panel. It just imagine it just opens up and there's like 18 people. Thank you for your opening statements, Shaun. Did you just throw me into this panel? What the fuck? You see like a Fox News, you're like, what? What's
That
happening?
would be a very funny, like, I mean, I don't know how you would do multiple episodes of it, but like you get a comedian who's like talks about a thing a lot, who thinks they're an expert of like, no, I know everything about, even if it's just something stupid, like I know
Yeah.
everything about the Civil War, and then it like, pans out and just like, oh, here's 8 experts to talk to. It's just like you quickly realize like, oh yeah, comedians are dumb. They're like
We just like to
very
fill
dumb people.
air. It's not the word dumb, it's just that we like to speak before we think.
That's a good way of putting
And
it.
sometimes it can come out very stupid. That's
Well,
all. If you don't
well,
properly articulate your thoughts, like
there's
it's
just no, for the entertainment field, there's no job interview, there's no HR. So like, I forget sometimes. A friend who recently got out of comedy gave me good advice. I was ranting about something to him, and he was kind of like, he's like, I have better perspective now, but you forget like a lot of good comedians out there, a lot of funny people, a lot of nice people, a lot of smart people, but like, there's no prerequisite to do this. So it's full of people that are like lunatics, people that are
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, narcissistic and maybe a little sociopathic. And that's just kind of, I mean, almost to do the job, you need at least a 5% of that here and
You
there.
need
And
one of
some
those
people,
things,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And some people, their just levels are a little too skewed.
Yeah. Well, that's why I found like taking that break, like because of COVID and having to like kind of step back from doing all the constant shows, I was like, oh, I like all these other things too. I'm like, let me try,
Yes.
podcasting, or let me try doing more YouTube videos and stuff like that. And I found it's been tremendously like more calming and reassuring because forever, if you're just like grinding and doing the same thing over night after night after night, you don't see the progress until like months later.
Yeah. And
In
I'm a big proponent of the break. I mean, even if you work a corporate office job, not only do you have weekends, but you start off with two full weeks a year where you're not
Yeah.
working, and then ideally you get 3, 4, and that's only in America, which a lot of people consider to not have the time off that the rest of the world enjoys. So that's like the minimum.
Oh
So
yeah, Italy,
I
they're like
think
an
it's
hour
big.
break or something.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's big that like comics take breaks not only for their mental health, but I think it makes the comedy better because you're like, oh, me and my girlfriend went to Disney and this crazy thing happened. And this, like, as opposed to just kind of doing the same,
Hmm.
like, especially in a place like New York, and maybe you thought Toronto was similar, but like I'd see so many comics do like an open mic and they'd maybe say they bomb for 3 minutes. And I see them later in an open mic bombing with the same 3 minutes. And I'm like, sometimes you could learn bad lessons from open mics, but like you
Yeah.
gotta, if you should be out here trying to learn a lesson. You should be trying to learn about the act.
Yeah, because if you're just like repeating the same 3 minutes that didn't work at the last time without changing anything, then you're just like, it's just forming bad habits basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're making yourself comfortable with like the shit material instead of forcing yourself into that uncomfortable place and then creating something new that will hopefully elicit a better emotion than people groaning or not laughing at your jokes at all. I remember doing
100%.
like back to back shows in the same place where it was like an 8 o'clock and a 10 o'clock, and same it was the same lineup of comedians for both shows, and I think it was only like an 8 minute or 7 minute spot, and I was just like thinking to myself, I don't know if anyone is going to stay from the first show for the next show.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's an entirely new room, I don't want to take that risk of like somebody decides like, oh, let's go back and see the 10 o'clock show, and then they come in and they see me do the same thing over again,
Right.
which is so crazy because it's like I think at this point, if you're a comedy fan, you understand the process is like comedians repeat the same jokes until
Right.
not like we were saying before, where it's like literally word for word. It's like you pick stuff out, you add stuff in, like until it gets to the point where you like it. But I couldn't even do that. I was like, I need to do an entirely new seven.
That's almost putting too much pressure on yourself,
It's
unless it's
too
just stuff
much.
you've had.
That's
Yeah,
what I mean.
yeah,
Like there's like where there's such extremes, and it goes back to there being like no HR in this type of art or nowhere to turn to be
mm-hmm.
like, how do I find balance in what I'm doing? You kind of just have to figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's the advice in a weird way that not a lot of people want to hear. People like kind of
Mm.
come up to you and they're like, "Oh, you do comedy, and yeah, there's these little advices that we all have, but like it's sad that at the end of the day, the main advice is like, well, you just do it. You just keep doing it. You do it as many times as you can, as many different places as you can, and you'll learn it if you like it, and you'll learn to get better, and you'll see how much better you can do, and you just gotta just do it, and then let the lessons wash over you, and don't fight them.
Yeah, yeah, that's the biggest thing is not fighting the the lessons or like taking it too hard. Even just in life, when people like have a hard lesson face them, they take it as like a reflection of their own abilities instead of just like,
Hmm.
no, this is just a sign that something needs to change. You just need to go in a new direction, perhaps.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the thing with comedy is like, in some sense there is like a math to it. Like if you do a joke, you know, word for word, uh 100 times, and it does well 95 times, probably a good joke. Similarly, if it does bad 90, like it, but like it is funny that there are those things where it's just like, in your example, I mean, how many times have we all done rooms like the exact same room, the exact same night, and you're like, that joke killed 2 hours ago. Like right
Yeah.
here, I was here.
Yeah. It's so funny when that happens. I was dying at your clip that you posted on Instagram of like just saying that you were in a relationship and everyone started going
Yeah, it was very
crazy in the
funny. Yeah,
crowd.
yeah. That was like a surreal thing because it was like, yeah, almost like they were being too supportive. It's like
Yeah.
they rode the line of being nice, but almost kind of bullying me in
Yeah,
a
it's like a
way. That it was,
backhanded compliment. You're
yeah,
like, what's happening here, guys?
yeah, yeah. It was very, very fun, very surreal.
Oh, geez. No, this new album that you have coming out, which should be coming out soon, right? That's
As of this recording, it comes out tomorrow.
tomorrow.
So
Okay,
if you're
so it
listening
comes
to this,
out.
I presume it's probably already out.
Yeah, so this should come out tonight. So yeah, so
Oh,
check the link in the description, and I will. That's where the special is going to be.
yeah.
But like, this is it. Full hour you've got here, right?
Yeah, it's 54 minutes.
Nice.
So it's on, check it out on YouTube for free if you want to. If you're more of an audio person, it's on all the places you could get that. But yeah, just jokes my first special, so jokes I've been working on for, a decade plus. And
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, how long has this been in the making? Just
yeah, a
more than a
long time.
decade?
I mean, it's always tough to know with those early years because like, I mean, the first handful of years you're just trying to learn to be comfy on stage. It's not like any of that material has made it past the first couple years anyway. And then, there was probably a year early on or so where I didn't do it as much and whatnot. But it's probably been, 15 years in the making since my first open mic to when this came out, more or less.
Hell yeah. I love seeing it. I just had Robbie Hollywood too on the podcast the other night, and he's got a comedy special coming out as well. So I'm just trying to like, I feel like every guest that I've had on so far, I'm like, and
Nice.
now check out this comedy special. So the fans are
Nice.
all going to be enjoying laughter, which is what we need right now more than anything. I want to go back to trivia. Have you ever played Jackbox?
I believe I have. Can you remind me of explain
Jackbox
Jackbox a little
is,
bit?
well, okay, Jackbox, I'm gonna try to pull it up for the people at home. Of course, and I go to the actual website. Jackbox is amazing because if you,
Is that the thing why you look it up? Is that the thing where like you have everyone kind of writes answers on their phone and they kind of like,
yes, yeah,
yes,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
There's like all of these different games in it too, and I was like thinking because you did the Twitch thing, I was like, the Jackbox would be what you should also do.
Ah, yes,
I know
yes,
you guys make
yes.
your own trivia questions, but I'm like, you could pull in so many people with these Jackbox games because people can just pop on their phone. Like, say if I'm watching on Twitch and I
Mhm.
search for Jackbox, I could just literally sign in and join into your game as you're playing.
Oh, that's great.
You can have all of these people just like right in the same game with you.
Well, this is how far I got into trivia. Is I started kind of my pandemic job was I hosted Zoom trivia with all these questions I made, and like at times we had like 15 teams of like 5 people each, so we had a ton of people doing it. And I'm
That's
actually I'm
wild.
actually doing another season uh coming up. If anyone's interested, cheap price, get a bunch of people together, get on Zoom, play trivia. um and it's just like a thing almost now. I almost have loyal people who've done it with me through the pandemic that you're like, oh, this is just a fun thing. It's like bar trivia. You go
Yeah.
get a bunch of friends together, you go and you just kind of answer trivia questions and you kind of get to know the people and stuff like that. So it's been a good time.
Hell yeah, man. Where can people check out the trivia if they want to go see that as well? I'm
That
pulling up all your social pages here, but
Yeah, that you could just message me. A new season is starting in like 2 weeks. And I just do it like privately through Zoom. And right now I think I got like 5 teams of like, 5 people each. And it's just like kind of a community that comes and goes. And it's a good, like nerdy, fun time, especially for those people out there that miss like bar trivia.
yeah, that I went to a couple of those. I was going to actually end up hosting a bar trivia thing, and then it ended up just falling through because I feel like to do proper bar trivia, you need like the bar to be like really supportive of what you're
Yeah.
doing. Zoom will probably be a lot easier to organize as long as you have like other people there supporting you. But like
Hmm.
when it was in the bar and I was trying to set up this trivia night, they just they wouldn't put up any posters advertising it, and they wouldn't even like turn off their TVs that were like playing shit while we were trying to host
Yeah.
the trivia nights. And I was like, no, I'm not
It's
gonna
so
do
funny.
this.
It's the same way with comedy where you're like, let's be on the same team here. Like
Yeah,
because especially most trivia people to a certain extent are the same way, but especially comedians, it's kind of like, hey man, I know I'm not going to be a millionaire. I just want to try and make a couple extra bucks. Ideally, we get a bunch of people in here drinking. I want to have a good show, and
yeah.
you're going to get people drinking money on a that you probably wouldn't have had in here. So let's both be happy.
It feels like it would be such an easy. The problem is they've like most places I find have at this point at least, unless they're new, have already been approached to do something like this, and
Yeah,
the
that is a very
experience has
interesting.
been ruined.
I say that a lot, especially in smaller. So I'm from Buffalo, and Ottawa's bigger, but it kind of it's a similar vibe, like
Yeah,
it's a city, but it's like,
spaced out like
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And I've kind of found those same things where it's always a tough line because say you have a bunch of new comics going and they're going to start a show somewhere. You're like, that's great initiative. We all have to fail and learn early on. But then there is also part of you that's like, I've seen all these people on your first lineup. I've seen their show. You're going to destroy comedy there forever. They're never going to have another show. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's trying to find that balance where it's like,
Yeah.
those new people have the humility to be like, all right, I can't just put all my friends on. I got to get this good comic and this good comic. And like, and it's tough sometimes because sometimes, when you're young, you think you're the shit and you got to make those mistakes. But that is the bummer of like, you go to some of these places and like, yeah, we had Jimmy the guitar guy in 3 years ago, and I'll never do comedy ever again. And you're like,
You're like, what?
you're like, I get it, but like, come on,
Hey,
man.
Jimmy's in a psych ward right now, man. Come
Yeah.
on. Like this is not the same thing. Yeah, that the worst. I remember hosting like a show at a place and I only did like a couple shows with them, but the thing that sucked was like I had booked one of my favorite comics as the headliner, and then later the host, well, not the host, sorry, the manager comes up to me and he's like, "Yeah, that last guy, I didn't like him at all. Like, not a fan." And I was like, "Oh, god damn it!" I was like, because here I am being like, "Yeah, for sure, we'll have you back again." Like that was great. I laughed. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah,
had a
yeah,
good
yeah.
time. I think the material's hilarious. He just did not like it, and I was like, it's just one of those things that you couldn't control.
Yeah.
Sadly, like if the that's the thing too. I'm noticing more and more is there's a lot of people that like just don't get the joke. That's
Mm,
why I think like a lot of people can get offended so easily at stuff. Is I'm even seeing this with like satire. People genuinely responding to satire, thinking that it's real.
yeah.
Like
Well,
the
it's
amount of
tough
people I
because
see
the
sharing the Onion articles, like and being like
oh yeah.
enraged, you're like, oh god.
Yeah, it's tough because the whole world seems like just so even more messed up than normal that it's like, yeah, it's almost like the satire has to be better to even get through that sometimes. And obviously sometimes there's just no hope for like a dumb person who doesn't get the onion is not going to get the onion, and there's almost nothing you
Yeah.
could do there.
Yeah, sadly, you just have to just shake your head and walk away. Just be
Mhm.
like, I can't imagine like that existence, just deciding that, oh my God.
Are you
Luckily, I haven't seen a family member do that yet, or I would have to
oh,
lose
that's
it on
good.
them.
Yeah, that is good. Are you
Sorry, what were
from
you saying?
Ottawa originally?
No, I'm from Brockville, so it's like close to Ottawa. So I moved from Brockville to Toronto, stayed there for a bit, and then my brother just ended up like him and his girlfriend are having a baby. So well, they already had the baby. So I was like, I'm gonna move back closer to home so I can at least like be in a city that has comedy going on, but
Yeah, yeah,
also
totally.
be closer to family too.
I was going to ask you if you're a Senators fan or if
No,
you
I don't
don't care.
sports at all. I'm like, I think there was a certain point where I just like didn't have I think probably when I moved out of my parents' house, didn't have cable anymore, so I just
Mm.
stopped pursuing sports.
It's interesting because I feel like a lot of comics are like that. I mean, there's definitely, I would say, maybe like a quarter of comics really into sports, but it's just funny that it's like as a group, I feel if you kind of bring up sports, they're like, nah, not for me.
I'm just like distractions.
Yeah, I
That's
get
it.
it.
Every time I've tried to like watch it, unless I go to if I like I love watching like sporting events like in
Mm,
person. I would go to a Senators game like tomorrow if somebody had tickets, right? Fan or not. But I would definitely say that I was like a Leafs fan to start. But even still, I would still go see a Sens game in person. To watch it on TV, I would just be antsy the whole time.
okay,
Like I'm
interesting.
like, there's something else I can be doing right now that's like just more a better use of my time.
I've kind of got that way a little bit with video games because I feel like I played a
Same
lot in
thing with
high
that.
school and college, and there's something to me like a TV show. You watch a Netflix show, say, and you're like, "Ah, I could get through the show in 5 hours, and I could talk to 8 people about it." But like, there's so many times that like I picture my college years being like, I played this game for 50 hours. I don't even know anyone who played this game. And I spent
Like,
50
who am I
hours,
going to tell these side quests
yeah,
about?
yeah, yeah. You want to talk to someone? Yeah. Did you get this? Did you get
uh,
the
the
urn
Elder
from the
Scroll.
orc and the yeah? Because I spent so much time in Elder Scrolls, and I was just or not. I think Skyrim was less. Skyrim, I spent so much time on it. Such a fun game, but
Long
it's like
games.
these games these days, and I'm sure nerds will tell me it's like, oh, they make small games too that you kind of pick up and play, and I'm sure they do, but like these big games now, they're just like they're so big that it's like you got to be careful, like
It'll suck you in. And I noticed that there's a what see like what got me off of video games, at least like the games that I was playing, was I noticed that there was like a very repetitive nature of like the game itself. And
mm,
once I picked up on that, it just bored me. Like I don't know.
okay.
I just was like trying to think like if I was playing NHL or if I was playing like NBA 2K or playing Call of Duty or Halo or any of these
Mm,
games, it's like you get that dopamine hit of like if you're winning or whatever, then there's maybe like a loss, there's a frustration
mm.
point of the gaming, then maybe you get another win and you're like, all right, I'm bored of it. Like
Yeah.
I'm done with this.
I
Like I don't need
still
this.
the times I do play, I normally play online with friends because there's a social kind of in the
Yeah.
moment aspect to that I find fun. But like, and I probably will. I swear, like once every 3 months, I'm like, I had to pick up like a big game, and I'm kind of glad I don't, but I'm sure that's going to happen. It's going to destroy a month
It
of my
itches
life.
up on you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It always creeps up on you where you're like, you see a new game come out. Like I keep eyeing like VR. I keep seeing like all this
Mm,
VR stuff, and I'm like, like I know it's like I don't want to get it, but I'm like, that's
yeah.
gonna the second I get that, it's gonna eat up every moment of my time because you put on VR goggles and it literally like it feels like it transports you to another place. It's
Yeah.
insane the effect that it has on your brain. Like you can get sucked into it and lose hours so easily.
Yeah. That's almost, yeah, that's the next level. It's almost even scarier. And then, heaven forbid the porn. I don't even want to, that's like, that's too, it could be too good. I
Too
don't want to
much.
know. I want to stay. It's like, I'm sure when, the internet came, there's a bunch of people like, I'm sticking analog here.
I'm
I'm
sticking to
sticking with,
Sears catalogs.
yeah, yeah. And then like I'm sure I'll try it at some point in my life, but there's part of me that's like, I'm sticking digital. I don't want to go full VR.
Uh,
That's
I've been
too
talking to a
much.
lot of comedians about this though. What do you think about like the comedy aspect of like the metaverse, being able to make money in that realm too?
It's interesting. Here's the thing. I feel like I'm already old in a lot of ways. Like I'm not gonna probably ever have a TikTok. I'm not like I'm not gonna. I don't know what crypto is. I don't want to know. And
Yeah,
there are things where that I'm like, if that's your thing and you could work that out, like good on you. But I
yeah.
feel like that's almost we only got so much things in our life to concentrate on. Do you know what I'm saying? And I feel
Yeah,
like someone
yeah.
will come along and make that cool, but I'm like, it's not me. It's not me. I'm not going to be the guy to
Like I'm
do
not
that.
obsessed with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like I keep seeing like people like making NFTs and they're like, oh, I made like $100 million on this NFT. I'm like, Okay, like I
Yeah.
feel like that has to be something you'd have to be so obsessed with. Like, when I like hear the process, my brain just is like, how does it work? Like, you
And,
have to
and listen,
transfer it to
don't get me
Ethereum, or
wrong. Money is cool,
sure,
of
we all love
course,
money.
but there's a thing where it's just like, I don't know, you made it doing that. Eh,
Yeah,
like
selling
I always
cat gifts.
yeah, like I always think of like there's a line in Citizen Kane, which is a movie I love because I'm basic, but it's so good. But there's a line in it that's like some guy says like something, I'm sure I'm getting it a bit wrong, but it's something to the effect of like it's not hard to make a lot of money if all you want to do is make a lot of money. And kind of the idea being like, yeah, you could get into nonsense finance or sell gifts of cats if that was all you wanted to do. You could do that and make money, but like, you got one life. Is that what I know? You could do a lot of stuff with
Yeah,
the
yeah,
money, but
yeah.
like, I mean,
The time it took to make it,
yeah,
it's wasted. Just learning about stupid shit. Like, I even spent like an entire day, I think, just looking into like the process of like how do you list an NFT, and it
mm.
took the whole day. I'm sure for someone who's like 20, it might not have taken a whole day, but for
Right.
me, it took a whole day. And I still didn't even do it. I didn't even do it, Shaun. I just watched the video and went, all right, now I have that knowledge. Useless. I'm sure it'll get pushed out with like a banana bread recipe or something.
Yeah, which is probably more valuable at the
Yeah,
end of the
right?
day.
Something tangible that I could feed myself with.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Now, did you start comedy in Buffalo and then
Yeah, I started
decided to
I
move?
did comedy in Buffalo. I want to say more or less the breakdown is probably 8 years in Buffalo and 8 years in New York City. More that's
Years.
about where I'm at right now, give or take.
Nice. Because that's like, for a lot of comedians, that it's either New York or LA. Those are the
Hmm.
two like big hubs of like where people want to go. What like not only motivated you to want to go to New York City, but like why New York over like anywhere else?
Well, there's a couple. One is just the convenience of like I didn't even have to leave the state, you know. So there is
Yeah,
the
true.
like if I want to go back home, it's an hour plane ride. It's 6 hour drive. And because of that, I knew a lot of people who left Buffalo who went to New York just because it's like not only New York, but it's fairly close. Um, and then there's just the aspect of like, I've always heard the thing of like LA is where you go to get famous, New York's where you go to get good. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not universally true, of course, but it's kind of the idea of like New York has this aspect of like being gritty and like really kicking your teeth in and making you, as good a comic as you can be. And that was more exciting to me than the other things, especially because like I like other aspects of writing, like screenwriting, et cetera, et cetera. But like acting, if I do it, I do it, but it doesn't really motivate me.
Yeah, I'm the
In
same
the
way with
same way,
acting. I'm like,
yeah. Like if someone handed me a role and they're like, "This is kind
sure.
of you," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll do it. It's fine. I'll do it." But like, it doesn't really excite me as much. So
I
yeah,
look at acting the same way as like crypto. I'm like, that's a whole world that I'd have to immerse myself in. It's
yeah,
like
it's a lot.
to do that on top of everything else, you're like, oh, I don't know. Because you see like how much actors put in. Like they're going to like workshops and they're like audition after audition after audition and they're getting new headshots like every
Yes.
3 months. You're just like,
And it
Jesus
is funny
Christ.
because acting is that like um it's kind of like the I don't know if you ever heard that Mitch Hedberg joke about like people always want comedians to do other things, but that doesn't happen in any field.
Yeah.
It's like, oh great, you're a good cook. Can you farm? And
Yeah,
like
yeah.
and
But can
and
you
that's kind
farm?
yeah. And that's kind of a similar thing with like people just expect comedians to act. And there's been times uh I've done a lot of background stuff. I haven't had any speaking parts, but I've been close to getting some like very minor speaking parts. But it's kind of like, do they know I don't know what I'm doing? Like it like it's kind of it seems insane to me that I'd show up
Yeah.
on like a sitcom with like the lead and I'd have a scene with him and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
I didn't go to
You know what I'm
school
saying?
for this. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's this very strange to me.
Yeah, I guess like comedy is really the easiest way into like the field of entertainment in terms of like there being no barrier to entry. But then if you're able to like not even do well. Like you could be a terrible comedian with great connections and make your way into like a project. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
100%.
like
Especially with
it's the craziest thing.
just in my example of acting, I feel like there's so many times it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, yeah, but they're looking for a tall, skinny guy with glasses. And I'm like, okay.
Just be
It's like,
yourself. You're like, all
yeah.
right then. That's fucking weird. Yeah, the a few times that I've done acting, I've just like again, just bored. Just like
Mhm.
there's just so much repetition of just doing the same scene over and over and over and over again. And then just when you think that you're done, they change angles and you have to do it again from the other side. And you're just, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a long process.
I'm like, no, I can't do this. I love
Mhm.
comedy so much because it's just like you're in, you're out, you say exactly what you want to say, and then you get the fuck out of there.
Yeah, very
There's
true.
no take two.
Yeah.
What, as lame as a question as this is, but I'm sure people will want to know, especially if they're just hearing from you for the first time.
Mhm.
Like, what made you want to start doing comedy?
Um, I almost don't know. It's just one of those things that when I was younger, I was on TV all the time. This was back in the day of uh, Comedy Central. They would just play uh, comedians all the time, which is kind of a shame. I know there's different to social medias and everything, but like it was a thing that's on, like to almost 24/7, like an entire channel that would just play stand-up comedy. And it's just I really liked it, gave it a try in college, and it's kind of a thing that stuck.
Yeah, I was the same way. Just like watching Just for Laughs constantly every day after school and those Comedy Central specials, like Mitch Hedberg.
Hmm.
And then literally, yeah, same thing. Went to college and then had an opportunity to do it. And I was like, all right, yeah, let me take a leap here. It was only
Yeah.
because I didn't know anyone though. That was the only reason why. It's a hard
Well,
thing growing up in a small town. You're like almost embarrassed to try things.
yeah, that's funny.
Like it's such a weird.
I I always tell people too, like it's kind of a fun thing where most adults, the people that they know, it's like high school, college, their job, and then maybe if they have kids, the kids' parents at the thing. But like at a certain point, you kind of stop making friends. And the great thing about comedy is it's this kind of like this global community where you go out and you're still like making friends. You're still
Yeah,
like, oh, I saw that person at that show. They're funny. Hey, what? And like most people don't really have that after the age of like 25.
yeah, that's so true. I was like, I always thought that about my parents too. They'd just be like, they'd come home from work and they'd just make dinner and they'd just chill and watch TV and watch us. And I'm like, you guys like have a friend you can call up and go to fucking bingo or something? I don't know, like
Yeah.
what old people do. But it was only because like, yeah, exactly that. Like you meet so many people doing comedy that like there can always be someone that you're like chatting with or going to meet up with or
Yeah.
that's such a great like I think a thing that we take for granted a lot is that like community aspect where you can literally go anywhere. You could go right now to like Asia and find a comedy club and then have something in common with all of the comics that are in that club.
Yeah, or
Like you're
even
all
just like I mean, obviously I've worked Ottawa a bunch of times, but like it's that besides the fact I could show up at Ottawa and be like, "Oh, blah blah blah. Oh, remember I saw you a couple years ago. Yeah, I remember doing your like it's kind of it's just like a big kind of yeah, like little little like corporation there that we all kind of like and then be like, oh, you work that place, doesn't the boss there stink, or like we all
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
have
yeah.
similar things.
Yeah, that's the funniest part too. Is yeah, it's comedy as the corporation, and then we're all just kind of like individual contractors that are passing by on jobs.
Hmm.
And it's like we don't have really great workers' union rights here in Canada. All the club owners can't even do their own jobs if they want to. Well, I'm sure it'll come back, but like, it's frustrating for sure.
Oh yeah, I can imagine it. And even just like, yeah, I haven't played Canada and probably since like 2018, but it was one of those things of like 2019 things just got away from me, and I was like 2020 I'll kind of get back in the swing of
Hmm.
those rooms I do up there, and it was just like, of course, that went
Yeah,
away, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
so like uh yeah, it's gonna be fun when it's back though.
I'm gonna be like, I'm very curious to see because the rules are different everywhere, right? Like everywhere, I feel like it keeps changing. So it's gonna be
Mm,
interesting to see how going forward this like starts to impact like tour schedules of like musicians of you
right.
know of any big performer who's trying to put together a world tour at this point. It's going to be pretty impossible if you're not vaccinated, but
Yeah.
like it's going to be pretty difficult even if you are vaccinated.
Yeah. Yeah. It will be interesting to see how that kind of
It might be the
unfolds.
censorship thing though all over again, you know.
Yeah,
It's
but it's,
like
I mean, the way it worked in the States, it was pretty, like I said, the first couple months were, there was some weirdness in terms of both internally and be like, even externally, what do I do? Am I
yeah,
do I
because is
mask? Do I
state
got
by
to show
state
it?
different? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a little bit, but like now I think it's starting to, knock on wood, get to a point where it's a little more universal for good and bad reasons, but we'll see what comes out of that.
Yeah, I mean, like, and then this trucker convoy that we have going on here in Canada too. I don't know if that's
I've heard
moving the needle or
a
if
little
it's
bit
making
about
it
that. Yeah,
harder.
it's interesting because yeah, there's a lot of, you know, it's always a lot of loons out there. And like even sometimes when, people you're like, oh, maybe that person has a point there, and then they'll just be like, wait, is that a swastika? What are you doing? Or like,
Yeah.
and then,
It like read my mind.
and
You're
then
like, no.
and then but then you're like, oh no, or I don't even, to be honest, I didn't keep it. I just know there is a trucker thing. That's basically all I know about it.
Dude,
So like, and then
so
there's
I went down.
sometimes you
So go
see
ahead.
people and you're like, oh no, these people are crazy, and then you're like, yeah, it's just, it's a whole mess.
So I went down there. I think it was just before like they were going, but it wasn't. I haven't been down there since like the 31st, so it's been a little bit. So the mood and tone could have changed since the time that I was down there. But when I was downtown Ottawa, all the trucks had blocked off the area right in front of Parliament, and it was like so calm and chill. Like I didn't know what people were. The news, you watch the news, it looks like people are there's bombs going off or something. Like I
Mhm.
don't know. They made everything so like dramatic, and you walk down there and people are just like laughing and drinking their Tims and like the odd honk of their like truck horn, and then they're
Mhm.
like waving at each other and shoveling or like
Yeah.
you see like families getting out of the trucks and like walking. I'm like, oh, they're like looks like they just came back from a
it
ski trip.
it in both, sometimes good, because listen, there's a lot of shit out there, we all don't have the time, but I feel like with that trucker convoy, I use the method that a lot of people use these days, where it's just like, oh, my dumbest friend on Facebook is for this, I probably disagree with this, and then just kind of like
I
scroll
don't need
through of
Facebook
what.
fact checkers. I just need to check Tommy's Facebook feed.
Yeah, yeah, Tommy's really into this, okay, it's probably stupid, I'll move on.
That's such a good like way to get a quick guess on or a quick gauge on
Right.
whether or not you should be for this.
And it's one of those things, it's like, it's probably lazy of me, but it also probably has like a 90% accuracy, right?
Yeah, I mean it's not entirely off.
Yeah.
That's crazy how like just how easy it's become to predict people's like
Yeah. Very true.
leanings. You know,
Hmm.
like you never before have you been able to totally expose a person and their interests off of knowing one thing about them. You can
Yeah,
know
yeah,
one thing about them, and you're like, I'm gonna assume the rest then
yeah.
because
Yeah, it's
I'm
very
probably
true.
not wrong. It's gonna make crowd work a lot easier, Shaun.
That's true.
You have like so much more to pick apart on them.
Yeah.
Oh shit. I always ask my guests this question, and I fixed it because Quincy Martin ruined it, and I had to like change the question. God damn it! But if you can make a phone call to 15-year-old Shaun in another universe, it has no effect on your life whatsoever. That's where he got me. He's like, I wouldn't
Okay.
change anything. I'm like, that's not the point of the question, Quinn. If you could just offer 15-year-old Shaun in another universe a piece of advice, what
I
would
got
you
a good
say to
one.
him?
I got a good one. Um, I think it would be to try more slash harder with things, because I think you have, and a little bit of this in a comedian, a little self doubt is good, so you don't become like a psychopath. But I think I was the type of person who walked around just a little bit like, I don't want to bother people, or I don't want to worry about that. But like, I think then you get older and then you just even realize things of like, oh my God, that girl had a crush on me. What? Like, and you just like, your mind doesn't let yourself pick it up because you're kind of like doubting or self-hating or kind of got other things going on, where it's just
Yeah.
like, it's kind of the old maxim of like, well, if you try and you fail, what's the 90% of the time it's not gonna, really be that big of a deal. So just, so I think that would be it, to just kind of,
Try more, try
yeah.
harder. And don't be like, I think self-doubt is like a big thing that cripples a lot of people's confidence. Is just like, also like just thinking that everyone is watching and judging their every move too. We have this like
Yes.
weird thing where we're always thinking like, if I do something, everyone's gonna be looking at me. It's like nobody gives a shit. Everyone's in their own.
No one cares about you in the slightest.
Oh, which should be the most freeing thing ever.
Which is, yes, exactly.
I don't take that as like you're a nobody. It's like, no, do whatever you want because everyone else is already doing that.
Yep.
If you are on YouTube, don't forget to pop over and check out Shaun's comedy special. Let me get it up here for the peeps. Neil, what's the name behind, or what's the story behind the?
So there's a joke in it. I don't mind giving the joke away, but it's basically the gist of the joke is I talk about how New York is kind of mean, and as an example, it's a true thing that happened to me. I was walking through the streets and two kids kind of stopped me and they're like, "Hey man, you got a cigarette?" And then his friend kind of nudged him and he's like, "Man, that loser doesn't smoke. That motherfucker looks like he's named Neil." And that's the joke. I feel like a lot of people afterwards will be like, "Hey, good set, Neil." Like they'll kind of.
That's so great.
Yeah. So like, and that's a way too. It's like, if you see me and you don't remember my name, maybe you remember that joke and you look it up through that.
That's gonna make you smile too. If somebody calls you Neil now, which is funny. You're like, you're like, hey, it's stuck. At least that's stuck. You can follow him on Instagram as well. I am Shaun Murphy. Again, all the links in the description below. Check out the podcast In the Hunt, the Buffalo Bills podcast. And anything else you want to promote, Shaun?
That's it. You nailed it. Just check out, throw that special on YouTube. Yeah, watch it.
Put it on repeat.
Yeah, but if you don't like it, put it on repeat. Go to bed.
let
those views get up.
Yeah. Let's get monetized here. Monetize off the special.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
No problem, man. Thanks for coming on. Thanks everybody for listening. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review and share the episode with your friends. That always helps. But until next time, I've been your host, Johnny Rogers. Keep it classy.
You've been listening to The Johnny Rogers Show. New episodes air every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.